Welcome back, and you're Keeping Abreast with Dr. Susan Love. I'm Dr. Susan Love, and today we're talking about particularly what you can do to decrease your risk of getting breast cancer. You know, in the last segment, we talked with Dr. Leslie Bernstein a little bit about how birth control pills, particularly the old style that I took, the industrial strength birth control pills, can increase your risk of breast cancer. But the other flip side of that is, what about hormone replacement therapy? And hormone replacement therapy, estrogen and progesterone, or progestin, were typically given to women at menopause, often in the form of Premarin, which is an artificial type made out of pregnant horses' urine. And that would reduce the symptoms of menopause. And for a long time, we thought it would make you youthful forever, prevent heart attacks, strokes, Alzheimer's, everything. And it shows you how important research is to answering these key questions. We had a woman, it's the only time we had a woman actually, who was head of the National Institutes of Health, and she's the one who started the study, the Women's Health Initiative, that finally answered the question about the safety of hormones after menopause. And what they showed was that the women who took hormones the women who took hormones had less heart attacks, strokes, Alzheimer's, less car crashes, less bankruptcies than the women who didn't take hormones. But what you couldn't tell was whether the women were the same kind of women, because we were just observing the women who took it versus not. So you didn't know whether healthy women took hormones or hormones made you healthy. Well, Bernadine Healy, who actually just recently died of a brain tumor, but she was the one who started the study, and they randomly assigned women to either take the hormones after menopause or not. And what they found was that the women on hormones had more breast cancer, more Alzheimer's, more strokes, and more heart attacks than the women who were not on hormones. Now, this, of course, caused a big brouhaha, but it shows you how important it is to do the research to actually answer the questions and not just to assume that it might be okay. So now, the year that study came out, a lot of women stopped taking hormones, and that year the incidence, the number of new cases of breast cancer, went down drastically, and only in the countries where hormones were being used. So this is a good example of why we need research and how we have to keep studying things. Just because they sound like they make sense doesn't mean they necessarily are right. And medicine is a work in progress. We keep trying to sort it out one way or another. And this is a good example of that. Now we're going to go to some more callers and see what kind of questions they can come up with about this as well. So let's have the first caller, which is Paulette from Orange, Texas. Paulette, are you there?
Yes, I am. How are you, Dr. Love?
I'm good. Now, I know you had an issue with postmenopausal hormones as well, but not the kind I was talking about, not the Prempro.
Right. I'm on compounded bioidentical hormones. I take those. I take a bi-F progesterone combination and a testosterone that's compounded for me.
Okay. And the real question with those are they safe? And the answer
Correct.
is God only knows, and she hasn't talked to me lately. In fact, it's not likely that they're any safer than the unbioidentical ones. We know that women's own levels of hormones, if you just measure how much estrogen's in somebody's blood or testosterone after menopause, the women who have the higher levels have more breast cancer risk. So taking hormones that are like your own hormones will give you higher levels, and it is likely to increase the risk as well. But those studies just haven't been done. So it's not that we know they're safe, it's that we just haven't checked yet to see whether they're safe or not. I think in general, it's probably a better idea to not take hormones unless you absolutely, I don't believe people should suffer. And so if you're really suffering, you can take them, but you should take them for the shortest amount of time that you can get away with, because it's not clear that they're any safer than the non-bioidentical hormones.
Okay. What about the supplements such as the DIM, D-I-M? My physician has recommended that I take that. He says that supplement helps to rid your body of excess estrogens that it doesn't need. Have you found that to be beneficial at all?
I haven't actually heard of that supplement, I must say. So I can't comment one way or the other, but I'll tell you what I'll do. When I go home, I will research it, and the next segment of this show, the next show that will happen in a week, will address it.
Okay.
I'll find out for you.
I also drink a tea put out. It's licensed by the Johns Hopkins University. It's called Brassica tea.
Uh-huh.
Have you ever heard of that?
I've heard of that. Again, good studies in rats, nothing much in women in terms of showing you whether it really does anything.
Okay.
So I think the tea is probably less dangerous, though. I'm more worried about the compounded hormones myself.
Okay.
Okay, and we have another caller. We're going to go to Danielle from Manhattan Beach.
Hi, Dr. Love.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm a huge fan. I read your book, by the way. I'm a huge fan of all the work that you do. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
I had a question about soy. I heard it's a plant estrogen. Is that safe to eat?
Well, calling it a plant estrogen is really a bit of a misnomer, because it sounds like if you just eat enough of it, you'll have more estrogen and it would be just as bad as taking the drugs. But in actual fact, it's a selective estrogen receptor modulator, which sounds very fancy. But what it means is it can both act like estrogen or block estrogen, depending on where it is and what organ it's in. Some of the drugs we use for breast cancer, like tamoxifen, are also selective estrogen receptor modulators. Sometimes I like to think of them as being bisexual. It depends on who they're hanging out with, whether they act one way or another way. And so soy in some organs will increase estrogen, and in other organs it will block estrogen. Now, the most important message, though, from the soy story is that all the data was done on rats and mice and in Petri dishes. And in those settings, and certainly in the rats and mice, it increases breast cancer and it causes it to spread and it looks terrible. So women were told never take soy, particularly if you've had breast cancer or it's a hormonal cancer. Well, then they did a study in Asian women who ate soy naturally in their diet, and lo and behold, even in breast cancer survivors, the ones who ate soy had less recurrences and less breast cancers than the ones who didn't. So we're not rats. And it shows you why we need to do research on women if we're going to figure things out and not just do research in rats. So the bottom line is it's safe to eat soy as a food, as in soybeans or tofu. It is probably not such a great idea as taking supplements in soy, because you never know what you're getting, and so that could be more dangerous. But eating soy as a food is no problem at all for women with breast cancer or women who are worried about it. Thank you very much. We've got to take a break now, but stay tuned. And we'll have a few more calls and talk to you about how you can help us figure out breast cancer. This is Keeping Abreast with Dr. Susan Love on KFWB News Talk 980.